Galactic greetings to thee. It is I, David Gramillion, your ever so humble host of the Star Wars Geeks podcast, here with another Clone Wars review. Now, for those of y'all who are tuning in, kind of late, uh, I've never seen the 2008 Clone Wars series. I've seen bits and pieces of season 5 because it was the hot thing, but I haven't really watched all the way through. So I asked the people, do you want me to watch it and report on what I've seen? And so far, it's been an overwhelming and resounding, yeah, of course. So I'm continuing watching. I'm still in the first season. So far, it hasn't been the huge disappointment that people kind of assumed I thought it was going to be. It's had its moments, both good and bad, but overall, I mean, it's not terrible. It's not a disaster, and it's certainly not for babies like some people have criticized the show about being. These two episodes that I saw was called Jedi Crash, and the other called Defenders of Peace, and they're kind of a little two-part arc that fit together. And what jumps out at me so far is that I understand that some shows are going to be episodic, some of them are going to connect to the bigger picture. Episodic, for those of you who don't know, it's your SAT word for the day. Episodic means that it's contained within itself and doesn't affect the grander design, the larger story. And I mean, so far, the last few episodes especially, they just drop you right in the middle of the action. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. I understand that, you got to be anywhere at any time to help with the war. But like in this case, all of a sudden you're just, bam, you're there and it's a war zone and Anakin's on his way and here's the battle and what's going on. You're like, okay. There's no connection at all to the last episodes, which can be both good and bad. I mean, this keeps the action going, keeps it fresh, keeps you moving, right? But at the same time, it just doesn't feel connected. It feels really disjointed. And this is the same way. I mean, all of a sudden, bam, we're in a battle. Here's Jedi Knight Aayla Secura, or Jedi Master. They keep calling her Master, so I'm not sure. Jedi, let's leave it at that, Aayla Secura. And she's got her 3 battle cruisers, and they're being hammered by separatists, so Anakin comes in to save the day. And you jump right into the action. There's no prologue. There's no pretense. You're just, bam, you're right there. I know what I did like. They're already in the atmosphere, right, because there are clouds all around them and blue sky and all that. So the separatists are raining fire down on them and punching holes in their ships. So what do? Instead of sending out fighters, for whatever reason, instead the separatists send droids out with, like, I guess they have like little jetpacks on or something, or they can somehow propel themselves. And they send the droids out, like these battle droids, right? The ones you usually see in land battles, down to Aayla Secura's ship. And I thought that was a brilliant idea. These things are walking laser cannons, so why not just send them? I thought it was great. I thought it was a brilliant move, because all we've ever seen before is big ships and little starfighters. I thought this was really just a neat little tactic. A line was uttered when they're evacuating Aayla Secura's ship. They take the shuttle inside another larger space cruiser in the middle of the battle, which is, for some reason, seen as kind of a reckless move. And the Admiral says, point blank, says, to Aayla Secura, are all Jedi so reckless? And she answers back with, only the good ones. Which is a cute line, but it did kind of make me wonder. Jedi don't like to be called reckless. Yoda even chastises Luke for having reckless tendencies. I would think that the Jedi would almost perceive that as an insult rather than only the good ones are reckless. Oops, so I guess Mace Windu, Yoda, Plo Koon, all these high-up masters who aren't reckless. Yeah, I understand. It's a good line. I really, it's good. It's quotable. I like it. I just don't know that the Jedi would really, really, really like to be called reckless. Now later on, Anakin gets injured and they crash land on a planet somewhere. And Ahsoka talks to Aayla Secura about her confusion because she does feel compassion for Anakin, but she knows she's not supposed to but it's weird. I mean, you can't get attached, but you can't help but. I mean, you got to feel some kind of sympathy or empathy or compassion or something for a person you work with, but you can't. And so the confusion is there, and I like that. I like how we explore how the Jedi struggle with the fact that they can't be Vulcans. I mean, they don't have all emotion just sucked right out of them, right? I mean, there's got to be something there, but how do you deal with having compassion and not having attachment? Now, Aayla Secura's solution is to ditch Anakin and go find the natives of the planet. Whereas Ahsoka's like, what? But I like how they at least begin to explore that. That's been a big question that a lot of people have had for a long time, and myself included. Another thing I really liked about this episode was the music. The music in this episode in particular was really, really, really well done. I love it. They do meet finally an indigenous species, and they're kind of these weird-looking monkey Rafiki from Lion King sort of things with these gigantic, like Wolverine-type beards, and only they're tiny, tiny little monkeys. And okay, whatever. And the music when they met them, there was a theme that these little monkeys had, and I really enjoyed this music. If for no other reason that you should look this episode up, just listen to the music. I got a real kick out of it. So that was the good stuff. Let's talk about what didn't work in the Jedi Crash episode. The battle starts at the very beginning. They're already inside the planet's atmosphere. There are clouds all around them. There's blue sky all around them. And there's a point where Aayla Secura is terrified because they're entering the atmosphere. And did you get like J.J. Abrams syndrome? What do you mean you're entering you're already in you see those puffy white cloud things? Those don't exist in space. You're already in. I blame, bad writing or bad script or I don't know, something. That didn't work. So Ahsoka and Anakin are rushing to save Aayla Secura, and they're in this little transport shuttle thingy that you saw in Attack of the Clones. And they're out of control. Their pilot had to bail, and so they're flying. They're, oh my God, we're going to crash. And they crash into the cruiser at like going really fast, and everybody jumps out of the shuttle, no problem. Usually when something crashes into a cruiser, you see this gigantic explosion, like Michael Bay style, right? And instead, not only do they not explode, but when they crash in, they hop out like, you just got out of the gas station. Hey, go grab me a Coke while you're in there. Oh yeah, no problem. We just crashed into a cruiser, but we're all fine. We're all fine here now. Thank you. How are you? It's like, geez, that just jumped out at me right away. So when they do land on this moon with the monkeys on it, or planet with the monkeys on it, and they haven't met the monkeys yet. It's their first night there. And it's a hostile world, clearly. I mean, they've got, somehow, some way they found a drawing of like, a tree and a monkey and a creature of some kind. And so they know it's a hostile world. They know there are creatures around. They don't know if the natives are friendly or not. And they leave one clone with an unconscious Anakin. And they bring an armed party to go meet the natives. Wait. Okay, so instead of staying together, at least for the night, when predators are typically their most active, you leave Anakin with one clone. Now, it's Rex. I understand a lot of fanboys love Rex, but it's one clone. And you take an armed party, the Jedi take an armed party to go meet the natives. Hi, we're the Jedi. These are like the 5 clones we brought with us who have these really large blaster rifles. Don't worry about them, though. Hi, how are you? Okay, I didn't quite see the logic in that one. And so they meet the monkeys, and the monkeys are ultra pacifists to the point where they won't do anything to stop even themselves from being killed. I'll get into that later. But there is a healer among them. And so the Jedi beg and plead, please, 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 just save our friend. And the elder says, okay, all right, we can't ignore a plea for help. The healer goes over to Anakin, and all he does is he helps bring Anakin back to the village. That's literally all the healer did. Now, the elder made a big point that the Jedi can't stay in the village. Get out, get out, get out. He says, where you go, the war will follow. We don't want the war here, so, go away. But the healer brings Anakin back. That's all he does. He doesn't do anything out in the wilderness where Anakin is. He brings Anakin back to the village with all the other Jedi and everything, and it's... Oh... Okay, whatever. So, all in all, it's an okay episode. Nothing to sneeze at, but I'll get into my overall picture here in a little bit. So that leads us to Defenders of Peace. And Defenders of Peace... All right, I'll just come out and say it. The arc is pretty forgettable. There's not a lot here to hang your hat on as far as being memorable. This isn't really an arc. I mean, I've heard about the Clovis arc, and I've heard about... the Onderon arc, and I've heard about different arcs in the series that people point to. This is not an arc you point to as being like, oh man, we gotta watch this 2-episode arc, it's so awesome. I mean, they're not bad episodes, it's just not memorable, it's pretty forgettable. And this episode sadly falls right into that category. First of all, okay, so the Separatists, surprise, surprise, the Separatists do show up. Apparently this happens to be this one general who apparently has nothing better to do than find a planet, and he lands, and as soon as he opens his mouth, his name is Lockdod or something like that. As soon as he opens his mouth, that's George Takei. I knew it immediately. It was George Takei. Total geek moment. I was waiting for at some point in the episode for this little Nemoidian to say, "Oh my." Total geek moment. George, if you ever watch this, hats off to you. That was just too cool. And sadly, that's kind of the only good part of the episode that I liked. I wish it's not that the rest of the episode was terrible. It's just, again, there's just nothing really memorable about it. Thank God I took notes, which you can't see, but I see them here, because there's not much to talk about. The bad. Okay, so at the beginning of every episode, there's a little fortune cookie saying right after the intro. This one says, when surrounded by war, you must choose a side. But the message that the elder gave us from the last one is, it takes two to fight. Okay, mixed signals? Just a little bit? I'm not sure what you're trying to tell me here, Dave. Dave Filoni. I really don't. So the Separatists land on this one planet where the Jedi just happen to be, and the whole time my mind is racing like, seriously? The Separatists have nothing better to do than to send a general to this planet for no reason other than to bully a village. They're not there for resources. They're not there to strip mine the planet. They're not there to set up a base of some kind. They land, they make fun of the elder for being a pacifist, and they start pushing people around and shooting up the place. They're not even there searching for the Jedi. I'm like, okay. And of course, then later the elder says that the Jedi almost brought them harm. Even though the Jedi had cleared out of there long before, and the Separatists made it clear that they don't even know the Jedi are around, they start shooting up the place, and the elder says that the Jedi almost brought them harm. Okay, all right, no, I can... okay. So the Separatists, it turns out, thank God, they are there for a reason. They're looking for a planet that is inhabited, but it is out in the middle of nowhere, has some natives on it that won't cause a problem, so they can test this new weapon. And this new weapon is a bomb that they, well, kind of like a mortar. They shoot it up into the air, it lands, and it kills everything in this radius area except machines, except for infrastructure. It'll kill anything organic, but leave the machines alone. So it's basically a neutron bomb that we started developing in the 50s. really, we can't do better in Star Wars technology than something that we already came up with 70 years ago, 60 years ago. Eh. Okay, all right. I'll let that go. It's a little nitpick. It's just something that stuck out at me. Um, so the elder is he's firm. He will be a pacifist. Separatists find the Jedi. Jedi find the Separatists. Battle's starting to come to a head. And even still, the elder says the dumbest line I've heard in this series so far, and that includes Jar Jar quotes. The elder says, "If it is our destiny to die, so be it." I understand non-violence. I understand a pacifist way of life. I understand trying to seek out a diplomatic solution. But when tanks are rolling your way and blaster bolts are flying overhead, you can't just lay down and die. You're not a very good village elder if you're willing to sacrifice your whole village just so that your beliefs can be held intact. Who's going to care if you're all dead? Oh my God, I couldn't. I mean, my eyes almost rolled out of their head. That's how. Oh. So in the first episode of this two-part arc, at night and sometimes actually during the day, these giant kind of big turkey things come out of the tall grass and start attacking people at random. And they're fearsome, and they kill 3 clones in like nothing, and they can take a couple of blaster shots before they go down, and they throw the Jedi around, and they're real fearsome, aggressive creatures, but they're nowhere to be seen in the second episode. They don't attack the Separatists, they don't attack the village, they don't attack the Jedi. They are nowhere. They're a huge problem in the first episode, nowhere to be seen at all in the second episode. I guess you could argue that they stayed away because of all the blaster fire. Maybe it scared them off, but it just... If it's going to be a big deal in the first episode, why isn't it a big deal in the second episode? That was kind of my beef with it there. So, all in all, I'm going to stick to what I said. It's not a bad arc. You know, it's not a horrible arc. It has its moments, like most episodes do. It's just kind of forgettable. I'm sure when I look back, you know, when I'm like midway through season 3, there's going to be very little about this that I'm going to remember at all. So that pretty much covers it. Coming up on the show on Monday night, which is right around the corner, I have got some contest information for you that the various Geeks pages and groups are throwing. And March Madness is right around the corner. Not just March Madness for the NCAA, but March Madness for Star Wars. And I'll get into that a little bit more on the show. Of course, we've also got a little bit of Rebels news, Episode 7 news. I've got some Padme Amidala news. I've got news. And I'm sure I'll throw in a rant or two in there somewhere. If you're not sure what show I'm talking about, links in the description. Check that out. Monday night, 8 o'clock Central Time. Party starts at 7. Y'all have a good night. Stay geeky, and may the Force be with you all.